Okay, this video is going to show you how to use frequencies command, and we're going to also look at last week's syntax and show you again the value of syntax, because remember, your syntax file is your command file. So if we look at the syntax that we had last week, and we have the data open that we used last week, and again, you can download this from the course website on Blackboard, and we have some ordinal data, nominal data, and intervally scaled data. And for the frequencies command, you can use it on any of the data, but it makes most sense to use it on nominal or ordinal data, because with frequencies, all we're going to do is get a frequency or count of the variables. But let me show you real quick from last week's syntax. Remember, we annotated it, and once you have the syntax for that particular file, you can just run it again, and instead of having to click through again, you have all of your information that you had from before, and it also shows your annotations. And so when you do this, you don't have to redo it again. It's provided for you just by rerunning the syntax. So let's start with this week's work. We're going to look at analyze, descriptives, and then frequencies. And here I'm going to select female. Now remember, the way that you select is you move variables from the left side to the right side, and the way you do that is you click on it and move it over, or you could also simply drag it over, whichever you prefer. I like to look at the frequency tables. If you don't want to see them, you unselect that, but I like to see those. And because this is just a nominally scaled variable, and you can tell by the three bubbles, let me show you over here. Let's cancel this. Remember, nominal has the symbol of the three kind of bubbles, ordinal has the stair step, and then the scale has the ruler. So we go to descriptives and frequencies again. So we know we have nominally scaled variable here, ordinal, and then interval. And so because we have only nominally scaled variables, we can only use the mode as a measure of central tendency. There are no dispersion statistics that we can calculate with nominal scaled variables. Remember, it's just it's basically just telling us that there's categories, but there's no order inherent in the categories, and there is no math that we can do with the categories aside from counting. And so since there's no dispersion, of course, there's also no distribution or sense of normality. So what we can do, we could select no charts, or we could do a bar chart or a pie chart. You should not do a histogram, because a histogram is saying that you have continuous data, because the histogram and the pie chart, the difference between them, remember, is that the histogram, the sides of the bar touch, whereas in the bar charts they do not, because they're independent categories. And so you can have it as frequencies or percentages, whichever you prefer. Let's go ahead and leave it as frequencies for now, and we're going to go ahead and paste this. And so remember, we have our output, which is in blue, our syntax, which is in orange, and our data file, which is in red. The data file contains the information, the syntax file contains the commands, and the output file is the result of allowing the commands to be run on the data file. So you must annotate your syntax file, and so when you use an asterisk, and I like to use 2 here, then everything in between there until you put your period will be a command. A comment. So since you're not familiar with it, let's first run it, and I'll show you what you get there, and then you can use what you see there to help you decide how you're going to annotate your file. So the frequencies command begins here, and you've also got a sidebar over here that you can, go to a specific part. So here's the command, and it tells you how many cases are present, and it also tells you the frequency table here. There are 150 of 0 and 150 of 1. Because I labeled this as female, what this means is the female is the 1 and the 0 is what female is not, and that's male. So I have exactly 150 men and 150 women. And so my bar chart is quite uninteresting because it's just exactly equal, but that is what you have. And if you had different categories here, of course the bar chart would contain more categories. And we talked about last week how if you double click, you can make changes to that chart so that you can make it look a little more to what your liking is. So what does that do for us? What do we want to say about this in the syntax? Well, with the syntax, you are getting the mode. Notice that it was provided. Here. And it says multiple modes exist because basically they're the same, and so it's not giving you one. If this had been 151 and that had been 149, then it would call the men the mode, but there's only 2, and so and they're equal, so it has no mode, but that's where it would list it. It also provides bar chart and a frequency table. So there's the bar chart with frequencies. If instead we wanted the bar chart in percentages, notice how all I did was change that, and if I run that, I now have the bar chart with percent. Now, of course, you see the scale is different. It's 50-50%, whereas before it was in actual counts, right? So we have 150. So in this case, it doesn't make any difference. You see the scale here in the percents, but if you had several categories and your counts, it'll take your counts and convert them into percent, which is nice. So you can indicate here that, remember we've got the 2 asterisks. You can put 1, it doesn't matter. That this is for nominal variables. Of course, you can have this for ordinal and interval variables, but it doesn't. You're going to get very odd results if you use interval data, because then you're going to have, let's say a scores ranged on your test from 73 to 97. Well, if someone scored a 70, that's going to be 1 frequency, and if 2 people scored a 71, well, that's 2. So you can see it's taking each score as its own category, so that'll be kind of a mess. But for nominal variables, it makes a lot of sense to have a frequency count. Okay, so the other thing that you can put is make sure to only use the appropriate statistics for the scale of variable that you have. So of course here we have nominally scaled variables, so we can only use stuff that's for statistics that are for nominally scaled variables. Then the other thing that you can do is you can indicate here for yourself that we had frequency, if we want the bar chart at the frequency, so we can remind ourselves of that. Frequency to have y scale to count, or was it, no, it is a bar chart. It's percent to have y scale to percentages. So we can either have it as frequency, or we can have it as percent, and I think that's all we want to annotate there. So this will give us a bar chart in percents or in frequencies or in counts, and it'll give us the mode for nominally scaled variables.